Jeffrey Epstein in a bathtub, questionable objects, a lot of powerful figures, and redacted faces. We are breaking down every major photo in the latest materials release from the House Oversight Committee as they investigate the deceased financier and sex offender. And we are going to explain why each photo matters and what its context is in the larger overall story. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Now, we've been on top of the story from the very beginning. Anytime there's an update, we try to get it to you as quickly as possible. And if you're wondering how we do that, if you're in the content creation game, if you're putting things out on social media, if you're wondering how we're able to share so many clips so quickly, we use something called Opus Clip. This is an all-in-one AI editor that makes it so easy to cut, create, and upload videos across any platform. Through AI, Opus Clip generates B-roll, it reframes footage, and it even cleans up audio. It is so easy. You just visit opus.pro/sidebar, you sign up, you upload, and in minutes, you have perfectly edited clips ready to go. For TikTok, Shorts, Reels, Opus Clip is your one-stop shop. Having a tool like Opus Clip means that our producers can get you viral courtroom updates instantly. This is the most powerful tool there is to help you share ideas and edit like a pro. So go to opus.pro/sidebar to create your videos today. Okay, so you might have seen the news that Democrats from the House Oversight Committee released all of these photos regarding deceased sex offender and accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Now, instead of just rushing out an episode on Friday when they were all released and say, oh, this is this, this is this, this is this, we said, let's take a minute, let's pause. Let's not only show all of these photos, but explain the context. Explain why they matter. What is it about? What does it mean? Why is it important? That is what we are going to do right now. Now, to be clear, these photos are not from the Department of Justice's release. You know how this is happening relatively soon. The DOJ has been ordered to release every Epstein file in their possession after Trump signed into law a bill requiring just that. We did an episode of Sidebar with CNN's Ellie Honig on what we can expect there. No, these photos that we're talking about today are from Epstein's estate that were released pursuant to a subpoena from the committee. In fact, to give you some context here, here is a press release from the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, the Democrats. Representative Robert Garcia, ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, released the following statement after the Oversight Committee received new photos from the Epstein estate. This latest production contains over 95,000 photos, including images of the wealthy and powerful men who spent time with Jeffrey Epstein. Images also included thousands of photographs of women and Epstein properties. Oversight Democrats are reviewing the full set of photos and will continue to release photos to the public in the days and weeks ahead. Now, this part's important. Committee Democrats are committed to protecting the identities of the survivors. Quote, it is time to end this White House cover-up and bring justice to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his powerful friends. These disturbing photos raise even more questions about Epstein and his relationships with some of the most powerful men in the world. We will not rest until the American people get the truth. The Department of Justice must release all the files now. So to be clear, I'm not going over 95,000 photos. That's not what's been released. There is a certain selection of photos that have been released. Why these have been selected to be released is interesting. And to think about this, there is no time frame of these photos, when they were taken, where they were taken, the context. We can kind of get a little bit of understanding about that. I'm going to do my best to explain it. But why these were selected, and without an explanation, can talk about that. But let's start going over them, and we got to start with the Trump of it all. So there is a photo of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together at what appears to be a party or social event. There's also a photo of Trump and a blonde woman with her face redacted out in a black box. There is also, same thing, photo of Donald Trump with 6 women wearing leis. Their faces are all redacted out in black boxes. They're at some sort of public event. Now, why are they blacked out? Is this to say they're victims? Is this to say they're survivors? Are their faces blacked out for privacy purposes? I will say it's interesting because the New York Post provided more clarity on this. They obtained 2 unredacted photos in this batch. One is this group of women with Trump, and the other is of that blonde woman with Trump. To be clear, we're not going to show you the unredacted photos. We got the redacted ones. That's what we're going to show. However, according to purportedly one of the women in that group shot, she spoke to the Telegraph, according to the Post, and said, I was 22 years old and remember him being very nice. He was very gentlemanly. That's the word to describe him. The outlet reports that the women were supposedly models representing the suntan lotion brand Hawaiian Tropic, that this was at Mar-a-Lago. It's believed that the photo maybe was taken in 1998. We don't know for sure. To be clear, though, there is no evidence of wrongdoing here or that they're victims in any way. So it is interesting and raises the question why their faces are blurred out without more of an explanation. I will tell you, author Michael Wolff, who we've talked about here on Sidebar, we've talked about him before, given his past correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein, somebody who has documented the life of Donald Trump in recent years. He spoke about these photos on the Daily Beast podcast, Inside Trump's Head. He said, the Democrats are blacking out their faces. And the implication here is that they are blacking out their faces because these might have been victims, I suppose, of Donald Trump. It's a weird signal that is being sent. White House Communications Director Stephen Chung told the Daily Beast, in really no uncertain terms, quote, Michael Wolff is a lying sack of S and has been proven to be a fraud. He originally fabricates stories originating from his sick and warped imagination, only possible because he has a severe and debilitating case of Trump derangement syndrome that has rotted his peanut-sized brain. The president himself was initially asked about these photos and said last week to a group of reporters, well, I haven't seen it, but I mean, everybody knows this man. He was all over Palm Beach. He has photos with everybody. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of people that have photos with him. So that's no big deal. I know nothing about it. And this comes after White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said in an earlier statement, once again, House Democrats are selectively releasing cherry-picked photos with random redactions to try and create a false narrative. Here's the reality. Democrats like Stacey Plaskett and Hakeem Jeffries were soliciting money and meetings from Epstein after he was a convicted sex offender. The Democrat hoax against President Trump has been repeatedly debunked, and the Trump administration has done more for Epstein's victims than Democrats ever have by repeatedly calling for transparency, releasing thousands of pages of documents, and calling for further investigations into Epstein's Democrat friends. And that's obviously a reference to an investigation that might be happening in New York. By the way, I didn't even mention this aspect. The Donald Trump condom. Got this photo of a card that says Trump condom, $4.50, with what appears to be a bowl containing Trump-branded condoms that says, I'm huge. CNN reporting that they were created by a shop called Fish's Eddy out in New York City. They're described as political satire in the National Museum of American History's online collection. There's another photo of a pumpkin carved out with a face wearing what appears to be a Trump-like wig, sitting on a table with a poster in the back saying, Trumpkin, make Halloween great again. To be fair, it is not surprising that we're seeing these photos related to Donald Trump because there have been video and photographic evidence of Trump and Epstein together in the past. Trump was a central point of conversation in a lot of Epstein-related communications, particularly in regards to Trump's campaign for president, his actual term as president. We covered this in a previous sidebar. There were messages that were released, like this one from 2011, from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, his convicted sex trafficker associate, saying, I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Ghislaine Maxwell writes back, I have been thinking about that. There's another where he tells author Michael Wolff in 2019, redacted, Mar-a-Lago, redacted. Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. This is in reference to maybe him being kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. Talking presidents. You know who else is featured in these photos? Former President Bill Clinton. It's a photo from what appears to be years ago, possibly the 90s, featuring Clinton alongside Epstein, alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, and musician Jimmy Buffett and his wife Jane Slagsvold. Clinton, too, is no stranger to being connected to the Epstein scandal. Vanity Fair had published a photo of him seemingly on Epstein's jet back in 2002. There was another photo of Epstein and Maxwell with then President Clinton back in 1993 at a White House event. It's reportedly in the archives at the Clinton Presidential Library. Clinton himself has confirmed that he was an associate of Epstein, but to be clear, he has always denied any knowledge of Epstein's criminal activity. In fact, there is a 2019 statement explaining how his Secret Service always accompanied him on trips that he took with Epstein. By the way, Clinton has never been criminally charged or officially implicated in any wrongdoing. And, by the way, it was last year when these Epstein files were released that Johanna Schoberg, an Epstein accuser, claimed that Epstein told her Clinton, quote, likes them young, referring to girls. It was reported that Clinton traveled on Epstein's plane for what was described as humanitarian trips to Africa in the early 2000s after he left office. So again, seeing this photo, not a surprise. Okay, let me move on to, I just got to say it, the creepy ones. Yeah, the creepy ones. Photo of Jeffrey Epstein in the bathtub. Stuff of nightmares. Don't know who took that or when. Kind of reminds me of all of those photos that were released of Epstein from his 50th birthday scrapbook, which we went over in a previous sidebar. Then we got this weird selfie of Epstein with what appears to be his lip swollen up. It's weird. Don't know what that's about. Honestly, not sure I even want to. Obviously don't know if he took that, someone else did. Then I got to be kind of careful about this. We have photos of what appear to be sex objects. Again, got to be careful on what we show here, how I describe it. A jawbreaker gag with warning instructions. Someone wearing a black glove with ribbed fingers. You have another photo of BDSM material with rope and a shibari book, an extreme restraints catalog. Just all very unsettling, considering we're talking about the guy who pled guilty back in the day in Florida to procuring a person under 18 for prostitution and solicitation. He was registered as a sex offender. He was subsequently arrested in 2019 for sex trafficking of minors before he died in his jail cell. So to see all this, unsettling. Yeah, unsettling to say the least. Now, there was another figure that has come out in these released photos that we got to talk about. Steve Bannon, former White House advisor. You have one photo of Bannon and Epstein together, sitting opposite each other with a big desk in between. You actually can see what appears to be a framed photo of a woman lying down. Back to Michael Wolff. He said about this photo in that Daily Beast podcast, this is an Epstein study. The study is on the second floor of that mammoth townhouse, what people say might be the largest private residence in Manhattan. Actually, Epstein said this, I'm not sure it's exactly true, but it's certainly up there. So this would be if you were creating a Jeffrey Epstein kind of diabolical character in the movies. This is the room that the set designer would create for that character. You have another photo of Bannon and Epstein taking a photo together in the mirror. Got another photo of Bannon talking with director Woody Allen, who we're going to discuss more in a minute. Another photo of Bannon with socialist activist, philosopher Noam Chomsky, who reportedly was in regular contact with Epstein over the years. But with Bannon, this is, again, not surprising either, since we reported recently in a previous Epstein materials release all of these communications to and from Epstein that were published, including a June 2019 email. So this is right after a photo was taken of Trump shaking hands with Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, during a state visit. Epstein apparently wrote to someone who, according to CNN, appears to be Bannon, "Prince Andrew and Trump today, too funny." He added, "Recall Prince Andrew's accuser came out of Mar-a-Lago." Seemingly, if this is Bannon, appeared to reply, "Can't believe nobody is making the connective tissue." As reported by the BBC, there was another exchange, for example, from November 2018, where Epstein seemingly helped to arrange Bannon's travel to deliver a speech, to which Bannon replied, quote, "You are an amazing assistant." I mentioned Woody Allen, by the way. You have this photo of Epstein visiting Woody Allen in what appears to be a film set. You have another photo of them together with Epstein laughing, this time sitting at a table. Now, Woody Allen made the news earlier this year when, according to People, in a birthday letter to Epstein on his 63rd birthday in 2016, he seemingly compared Epstein to Dracula. They were New York City neighbors, apparently. Said in part, quote, "Being neighbors, my wife Sunyi and I have been invited for dinner many times, always accepting, always interesting. Wide variety of interesting people at every dinner just about. Politicians, scientists, teachers, magicians, comedians, intellectuals, journalists, an entomologist, a concert pianist. I say well served often, it's by some professional houseman, and just as often by several young women, reminding one of Castle Dracula, where Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who service the place. The large phone and computer at his right hand does take some of the relaxed home cooking atmosphere out of it, but one can't have everything. Not at Castle Dracula." Okay, but back to the photo release. You got this one too. Former Harvard professor Larry Summers appears on a plane with Woody Allen in one photo. Now, Larry Summers, the friendship between Summers and Epstein was also well reported too, with the Harvard paper, The Crimson, revealing Summers had apparently visited Epstein's island in 2005. Flight records as part of a lawsuit revealed that he allegedly traveled on Epstein's plane multiple times. But recently, when all of those emails came out that I mentioned, you see all of these communications between the men. like where Summers was apparently looking to Epstein for romantic advice, with Epstein saying he's a, quote, pretty good wingman for Summers. Summers writing, I didn't want to be in a gift-giving competition while being the friend without benefits. Got this exchange from just months before Epstein was arrested in 2019, where Summers apparently writes about some woman, I said, what are you up to? She said, I'm busy. I said, awfully coy you are. Epstein apparently responds, she's smart, making you pay for past errors. You have another exchange where they discuss Trump, whom Summers called a clown in one 2017 email. So after all of this, and as we're thinking about this photo that was just released, Summers released a statement when those messages came out saying, I am deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they have caused. I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. Now he stepped back from his duties at Harvard. He resigned from his board position at OpenAI. You go back to the photo release, though, that we're talking about. Richard Branson's in one photo. The billionaire and investor who founded Virgin is seen sitting and smiling with a smiling Epstein behind him. Tropical area, appears to hold up a page from a notebook with calculations of some sort. And there's a guy sitting next to Branson, by the way, inventor Dean Kamen, who released this statement to WMUR, quote, I have been a guest of Richard Branson on his Necker Island a number of times for conferences and fundraisers. I believe this photo must have been taken during one of those events many years ago. I have no knowledge of any of the horrific actions of Jeffrey Epstein other than what I've learned from news reports. Then you got this photo of who appears to be former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, sitting at a table of some sort. There has been reporting in the past of associations between Barak and Epstein, including business investments. And remember, Epstein was this big financier. He, too, has denied any involvement in Epstein's activities, apparently cut off his relationship with him at one point in time. You have a photo of Jeffrey Epstein and acclaimed Harvard attorney Alan Dershowitz. No shocker there. He was once Epstein's lawyer. This photo actually is not really new. We've seen it before. We also know that deceased Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts Giuffre famously claimed that Dershowitz sexually abused her. But not only did he adamantly deny those allegations, I interviewed him here on Law&Crime actually, but she actually dropped the legal case that she brought against him, indicating she may have made a mistake. You got this photo of Microsoft founder Bill Gates standing alongside former Prince Andrew. He was actually stripped of his royal titles after the fallout from his connection to Epstein, even though he too has denied any allegations of wrongdoing. You could do a whole episode on all of the connections from Prince Andrew there. You have another photo of Bill Gates with who appears to be Larry Vysotsky, Epstein's former private pilot, with what seems to be Epstein's jet behind. Now, at the beginning of the year, Bill Gates told the Wall Street Journal, quote, Jeffrey, in retrospect, I was foolish to spend any time with him. And he sort of got time with various people by spending time with other people. So yes, I think I was quite stupid. I thought it would help me with global health philanthropy. In fact, it failed to do that. It was just a huge mistake. You have a photo of who appears to be Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, a business executive from Dubai. His name came up last month in those communications that I keep talking about, those emails, when Epstein said of Steve Bannon, quote, we have become friends, you will like him. Sulayem responded, Trump doesn't like him. It's interesting, considering in another exchange, Sulayem appears to ask Epstein, do you think it will be possible to shake hands with Trump? Epstein responds, call to discuss. Now, finally, there is just a lot of random photos. There is this shot of a massage therapy system device, which, if anyone knows anything about Epstein, is going to send shivers down your spine, considering the substantial abuse that he and Maxwell inflicted upon minors was in the form of massages. You have a picture of someone holding up a copy of author James Patterson's book. It's about Epstein. It's called Filthy Rich, holding it up in front of their face. You have this picture of a black credenza or side table. But what's notable are the picture frames on the wall above. All blacked out faces, survivors, victims, why are they blacked out? And then you just got one of who appears to be Bill Gates. And then you have this batch of what appears to be a bathroom, presumably from an Epstein property. Then you have all these photos of the interior of the property, including what we discussed on a previous episode of Sidebar, these photos of what seemed to be a dentist chair with masks on the wall. Super creepy. We assume this is of maybe his Caribbean property, Little St. James Island. Then the exterior shots of what appear to be that same property. So look, this disclosure is interesting. It doesn't change the narrative of what we know and who was connected or affiliated to Epstein. But to be clear, once again, all of these photos, after looking at them, there is no evidence of criminal activity or wrongdoing. It doesn't prove anything. It does nothing to rebut the denials of all of those mentioned who have said they did not commit any wrongdoing or misconduct, those who have denied any knowledge of Epstein's activities. But of course, we had to bring this to you, and we wanted to just provide a little bit more context to each photo. We're going to make sure to stay on top of this. When those files are released, probably they'll be released by the DOJ. We'll make sure to do our best to cover it here on Sidebar. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.